Good morning, Allison.
Good morning, Susan. How are you? How was your weekend?
It was awesome. The weather here has been just fantastic. I opened up the windows, was cleaning and freshening things up. I just love spring. And the grasses are slowly greening and the flowers are popping up. And yeah, it's been really nice. Walked the dog for a little bit. So
Nice. It's still
yeah,
kind of cold here. It's going on and off. It's like it's weather whiplash. It'd be 80 degrees, and now I have a sweater, a wool sweater next to me that I keep taking on and off because
I
I get
see
cold.
that. I
Yeah,
am.
it's yeah. But it was nice. It was a nice weekend. I saw two different sets of baby owls of different kinds,
Oh,
which are so cute.
yes.
Very hard to find always because they
What
make
kind?
make no noise.
Were they
So
great horn or?
one set was barred
Oh,
owls,
I don't know
and
what that is.
the other set was Eastern screech owls. And we have a
Oh,
red morph version here. So that's always fun. And they're hard to find, and one reason they're hard to find is you never publicize where you see them because they're especially in nesting season because they can
right.
get spooked
Yeah.
and around here. So I was pretty lucky. I got tipped off on one of them from a friend. So yeah, it was fun. And I wish I could figure out a way to bring the dog while I go do this because he would
Yeah.
love tramping through the woods, but that kind of makes it hard to find
Photograph.
the bird. It
Yeah.
doesn't work so well.
Yeah. They tend to run away when the animals are around. The
Yeah,
dogs
well,
are.
they scare the animals and you know all the things.
Yeah. And they're not always patient when you want to stand in one place for a little while. They're not
No,
they're like, "Come on, mom, let's go."
I know. Especially, my dog's like 50, 55 pounds. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll step on his leash to
Yeah.
to make him, if I need my hands, but he won't stay still. He
Yeah.
can't hold the camera when he wants. Yeah, anyway, but it was nice. It was nice. I am hoping it warms up soon. I'm getting tired of being cold here. Like I was gonna plant my garden this weekend. Usually we wait till after Memorial Day, but I think it's too early. We have danger of frost still. So I'm like, are you kidding me? Anyway, but it's all good. I am super excited this week to bring back a guest that has appeared before. She is like our own personal privacy guru. It's the best, right? If we
Yeah.
have a question, hey, Heather, can you answer this for me? So we're really happy to bring her back, especially ahead of, travel season, summer, when lots of people are taking photos and things like that. So I'm, super excited to have her back. So Heather, you want to come on out and say hello? I just have
Hello,
to
good
say too,
morning.
we did not plan this color coordination that we have happening today. The white, the navy, it just happened, which I think is very funny. Very funny.
I think it's like a spring refresh, right? Maybe we all hope for kind of warmer climes by the lake or the shore.
Maybe, although I'm the one that's in dark. So maybe it's like, anyway. Anyway, Heather, welcome back. We last saw you. I did look this up. Season 2, episode 7. So it was like January of a year and a half ago-ish.
Yeah.
Um, but welcome back to the podcast. Can
Thank
you
you so much. I'm excited to be
yeah.
back and excited to talk about all sorts of privacy and photo sharing or maybe not sharing tips today.
Yeah.
Can you start by just reminding for those of us who are new or those of us who've heard before, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Heather Nickerson. I am the founder and CEO of a company called Artifacts. But before I started Artifacts, I spent nearly 2 decades both working for the federal government as an analyst with the Central Intelligence Agency and as a president of a private security company, really focusing on helping families and individuals protect their privacy and make sure that they're able to live very happy, active lives without giving away all their personal data and information. I also, back in 2019, authored a book called How to Shield Your Privacy. And I will note we're about to kick off a nationwide book tour in March 2020,
Wow.
which not the best time to kick off a book tour when you're dealing with a global pandemic. So it was shelved and we went a virtual book tour. But I've been a very advocate, I think, promoter of how to protect your privacy, how to ensure your family and your clients are safe and secure online. And I think it's even more important today, just given how fast technology is evolving and all of the issues we now see with AI. So I'm super excited to be here, Susan and Allison, and talk about that all with you all this morning.
Well, we've got some great questions lined up, so we'll get started. Talking about photos, what types of security risks do photos actually pose? I mean, it's you think it's just I'm just taking a picture, it's harmless. So what can be wrong, when I do that?
Yeah, and that's a great question, 'cause I think we hear it all the time, right? Someone's like, it's just a photo. I think if we keep one thing in mind throughout our entire conversation today, it's not just a photo, it's not just a memory, although incredibly important. What you're actually taking when you take a photo, you are taking a treasure trove of data and you're freezing it in time. So think of photos not just as it's a beautiful moment in time, it's a beautiful memory in time, it's also a treasure trove of data. And let's dive into a little bit of like what exactly, like what types of data are you giving away or are you exposing? Perhaps you aren't even aware of it, right? Like that's where the risk comes in. None of us sets out to be like, hey, I'm going to go share all of my personal information about myself and my family online today. None of us set out with that mindset, right? When we're at like our kids' graduation or at a Mother's Day picnic or whatever it happens to be. But when we start sharing and posting photos, we end up doing just that. So let's take a look at that. So photos, first and foremost, they can contain a treasure trove of location data. So many photos embed GPS metadata essentially in their background, right? This metadata can reveal where you live, where you work, where your children go to school. Um, Speaking of children, if you are taking and posting and sharing photos of your children, think before you post, before you share. Because oftentimes kids, they're clad in school uniforms or sports jerseys, sometimes in front of your house, and now you're exposing your house number or your street you live on. There's also, if you're doing like a birthday party photos, it's now you know the age of the child. You can count the candles on the cake or see the sign in the background. Um, so photos of children can do a lot to expose their identity and also location. And we aren't thinking about this. I think when you're, in the moment and you're snapping a photo, but it's true. There's a lot of data there. Another couple of things I want to mention with regards to photos is just thinking more broadly. And I think we're going to dive into this a little bit later in the conversation about some AI pieces of this, but this sets the stage for it, right? So photos can also help establish patterns and routines. So back in the day when I was running that security company, we talked a lot with clients about patterns and routines. If you're trying to evade essentially an adversary, a bad guy from targeting your family, if there's concern about a stalker or kidnapping, and not that these are common concerns, but just you think about it, photos can establish routines and patterns. So your schedule, your commute, which gas station do you always fill up your car in every Monday morning before you start your weekly commute? Where do you get your morning coffee and at what time? We as humans are tremendous creatures of patterns, and photos can reveal so much about our personal patterns and habits. Photos can also reveal sensitive information in the background that we don't even sometimes think about, right? I think with COVID, we all started doing like our home office, our Zooms, and what's behind us in the background. Sometimes when you snap a photo, say you're a new parent and you're in the hospital room and you're so proud to share, baby boy John just arrived. You maybe have the medical bracelet with all the mother's or child's information on it. Maybe in the background of that photo is that whiteboard where they put all the sensitive personal data up there. So
Oh
just thinking about
gosh.
those
Yeah.
backgrounds, and we
Yeah.
laugh, right? But like I think we've all seen this too, like where
Well, people
again,
aren't thinking, they just do
they
it.
Yeah,
exactly they
Yeah.
just do it.
absolutely.
So our backgrounds, like you might not be taking a photo of the whiteboard, but it's the person in front of the whiteboard. Or it's, it could be the computer screen, or it could be whatever it happens to be. A lot of folks are so happy their teenager just got their license and they're snapping a photo of the teenager and the car, and the teenager's holding up their license.
License. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
And you weren't intent on taking the photo of the license. It was that moment, right? Like the car, the teenager, like that happy smile, the joy. But you also get the data on the license. Another big thing too is economic clues, right? Like photos tell so much about us. Sometimes it can be very intentional if we're trying to signal something, but other times it's just, again, going back to the photo of the child in the car, they got the license. They know what type of car you now drive, the license plate of that car, where you live, what type of a neighborhood you're in. If you're a bad guy trying to target, a house to go rob, you probably want a nice house with nice stuff in it. And photos are able to give that information. So even if it's not like technical data, like GPS metadata in the background, there's still so many little tiny data points that photos do share about us that I think oftentimes we just don't think.
Well,
So again,
especially,
I would say, oh, sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
I was just going to say, especially if, like, on some platforms, you can limit it to just friends when you share.
Yeah,
But many people share publicly, whether it's for their business or they're promoting something or just wanting to share, what's going on in their life publicly.
yeah.
So yeah,
100%. So if you take
Yeah.
one thing away from today, think of photos as data. There's a tremendous amount of data in there. It's not just amazing memories, but there's a lot about you and your family and your loved ones with every photo that you share.
yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
There's a couple things that I've started to see lately. So one that I hadn't really thought about until you mentioned it, but because
Yeah.
gas prices are so high, people
Yep.
are posting pictures of themselves at the
Yeah.
gas station and saying exactly where they are, right? Oh,
Yeah.
this Shell on Damon Ave or
Uh-huh.
whatever is, under $5, so everybody should go
Yep.
there. I mean, which is a whole other issue. But and then the
Uh-huh.
other one that I'm starting to see because I'm very in tune with the graduation
Yeah.
posts right now is people posting a picture, having to do with graduation, either in front of their house or, something that gives away where they are.
Yep.
And then essentially saying, okay, the graduate's done. Now we're off to Paris.
Yep.
It's like as a grad gift or as a whatever. And now, people who are watching or paying attention
Yep.
know everything. They know the graduation, they know how old the kid is, they know where the kid
Yep.
is, they know the family's about to leave their house empty
Yep.
for
Wide open
whatever.
invite.
Wide open invite. Come on in,
Yep.
everybody. The other graduation related thing that I've seen a lot of, and we'll get into this more when we talk about AI, but just to mention it now, is there is a trend right now of taking a picture of your kid when they're in like kindergarten and then putting it next to like they're looking at each other. A
Yep.
picture of your kid as a high school or a college graduate.
Yep.
And there's so much information,
Uh-huh.
so much information there. And we'll get back to that one later when we talk a little bit more about AI.
Yeah. I'm actually
But
going to use an
just,
example, Allison. That was one I pulled because I was just like, wait a sec, what?
oh
I had
yeah,
no idea.
they are very like I said, I'm kind of into I have a kid graduating college
Yeah.
this year, so I'm very in tune to that and have seen
Yep.
so many of them. And it
Yeah.
shows a lot because a
Yeah.
lot sometimes those first pictures are I want to be a nurse or I want to be a
Yeah.
whatever. And then the second picture will literally I'm going to still become a nurse and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go
Yeah.
to graduate school at and they're listing it.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yep.
out there.
Yep.
So, I mean, the license thing was the
Yeah.
example that I used to use a lot. And just to
Yeah.
one last note on that is if you think people can't really see the numbers because it's too small, guess again
Yep.
because you can.
Yes. It's amazing what Zoom can do.
I
Well,
know.
and the
Yeah.
technology in our pockets, these cameras are really, really good. I mean, high resolution images.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's software now to enhance stuff, so don't take it for granted
Hmm.
that it's far away. Just don't even bother displaying it or take a
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
to mark it out. I've done that. If somebody snaps a photo of me
Yeah.
in front of my house and, I want to share it, I'll take a moment just to erase my house address.
Mhm.
Just a simple step like that. But
Actually, a question about that, Susan, and maybe you could answer, maybe Heather can answer, but I had read somewhere that if you do that, so if you upload your photo onto a social platform and then use the social platform tools to like put a box over your house number or something like that, that there are easy ways to get rid of that. Is that
well, it's
true?
called
Like I've heard it's
redacting, right? So you're
right, but
you're trying to
redacting
scratch.
after it is
Oh,
uploaded, not
yeah.
before. And
I,
I've read that those are actually quite different, and that if it's redacted after
Yeah.
and somebody pulls that photo down from wherever, they can actually still get the information. If it's redacted before and
you
then
upload it.
uploaded, that
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
can't. Do you?
And that's key. That is like when it actually happens and in which stage is like before uploading or before sharing. So that
Yeah,
is very key.
I would do it before you
Yeah.
share. The
Yep.
the
yeah,
image can be on your phone. So if you open it up in Apple Photos and you use a tool to erase it or what have you, then you can save a new version of it. So now you've baked
yeah,
in those changes and
Exactly.
and then it's not another layer that can be removed from the image.
Yep.
yeah. I think a lot of people do it after they upload though, because they're thinking, "Oh, wait a minute, I put this up and then I just realized before
Yep.
I hit post, oh,
Yeah.
wait, you can see, whatever
Yeah.
information, so I'm just going to add that little box or the little smiley face sticker." That's the
Yeah.
one I see
Yep.
the most, the little smiley face sticker. And I do think a lot of people do it after. As a
Yeah.
former attorney, we had to redact things all the time. And honestly, the pen on the paper was the best
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally, because if you
Former
do it
former
digitally
CA analyst.
after, oh
Yes.
yeah, you can
Yeah.
you
Yep.
can pretty much. But anyway, sorry, a little bit of a side. It was just Susan, something you said made me think about that.
Yeah.
So
No, I
redact before, add the little smiley
Yes.
face before you upload anything. Don't use the social
And
media tools
save
to do it and save.
yeah.
before you upload.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, absolutely. So are you seeing any scams actively because of all this information on the internet now?
So there are a lot of scams out there. I'm going to focus on four that I think I've seen the most or I've heard of the most in the past 6 months. I will just say, just because we aren't listing a specific scam today on this podcast does not mean that it's not out there and legit.
Oh,
So if you're
absolutely.
listening, you're like, oh, well, that's not one of the four they mentioned today. This is totally legit.
Right.
Please, 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 please. I want to state some very basic guidance for getting to kind of the four that I've heard about the most. If you receive a link, an email, a text, a QR code, anything from someone you are not expecting to receive it from, do not open, do not click, do not, do not, do not. And even if your friend sends you something completely out of the blue, text them, call them, check before you click or download or open or scan. So I'm going to preface that before jumping into kind of the four that I'm seeing a lot and hearing a lot about these days. So having said that, I think one of the biggest ones is folks are using the data found in social media and photos to do account takeovers through social engineering. And this can be where a scammer can literally use the photos you've probably posted, or even like shared within a closed group, but you may not know how big that closed group is. Say if you're at a conference or if you're at a reunion, you just don't know. But using photos that you've shared, as well as some quick information they can find on a Google search about you or your loved ones, they can use that data to then answer security questions and impersonate you again through social engineering. It's pretty easy to find what was the name of your first pet, or what type of pet did you first have, or your favorite pet, or things like that. You can even, use AI these days to type in a question being like, here's a certain person's Facebook page, pop in the link. What pets, like pets, like it is very easy to get that information these days. What school did you attend? Back to, Allison's point, you're sharing these photos. A lot of us, or a lot of folks, I won't say us, I don't, but a lot of folks have, school you attended or school you graduated from is a security question. Things like family members, if you can figure out who you're related to and what their maiden names are, that's really easy to do these days.
Yeah.
So again, like it can be incredibly easy for a scammer out there to collect the data you've publicly shared in photos or you publicly shared elsewhere, put it all together, and then do an account takeover.
Right.
Um, and this is where I'm going to say two-factor authentication is huge
Oh,
because
absolutely.
if you have someone who's able to guess your, combination of passwords and security questions, if you don't have two-factor authentication enabled, you no longer have your account. So
Right.
that's a big one. Another big one, I think, kind of along the same lines here, are fake profiles and romance scams. I've seen a lot of this in the news where folks, and sadly, oftentimes it's typically senior citizens who are taken
Hmm.
advantage of here. But folks will get roped into thinking that they have an admirer or a lover or someone that wants to be with them. It's that social connection.
Yeah.
They play off of that. They're able to use, again, photos and other information publicly available about you to figure out your interests. Oh, you love knitting, or you're a bird watcher. I just saw this, or I just did this. And you start having these conversations. And sure enough, you get into this like, oh my gosh, I have this, love interest. And now they're asking me to buy their airline ticket here. And I'd love to see them in person. So it sounds, you may be sitting at home thinking, well, I would never fall for that. But it's really convincing when it's socially engineered. And when we say that, when it's devised to make you want to click and engage and be part of. Again, because they're using information about you to essentially mirror back someone that would, be
Be
just like you, be a
interested.
good
Yeah.
friend. Exactly. So that's a
And
big
it's
one is the
probably
kind of
not
fake.
just a one or two. It's like they create a full conversation.
Yes,
Because I have
very
people
much
reach
so.
out to me all the time about birds and things. Usually it's by email
Yeah.
related to something else, but and I will engage with strangers
Yeah.
about it. And
Yep.
it's easy. It's very
Yeah.
easy to get
Yep.
caught in
Well,
that.
And
and
that's
all the
where,
data brokers
Mhm.
out there are not helping.
No,
There's
they definitely
so
aren't.
many data brokers that have information about where you live, the past places you lived, people who are related to you. So, one of the things I've
Yeah.
been doing is started a couple of years ago is that I have an account with a company called Delete Me, and it tries
Yeah.
to it's almost like whack-a-mole because as soon as you get rid of
Yeah.
one, it just they reload your data again and whatever. But at least I feel like I'm trying to reduce the amount of data that is out there about me that can be
Yep.
controlled.
Yeah, very true. And I want
Yeah.
to make one note on what Allison just said about the whole like engaging with folks. If you have a hobby that's publicly known and you're engaging, you're publicly posting, so you want to include others in that hobby, this is where I think you've got to have kind of that, you've got to have your spidey sense up every now and then. If the conversation
Mhm.
starts going away from the hobby, that's when it's time to say, all right, full stop. Like, I'm not going to share my personal information. I'm not going to do this or do that. Or there's got to be some other check and balance there. Because that is, I think, a very good point, Alison, that folks do. It's, I think, part of, especially post COVID, there's so much online community of people we've never met before because we share hobbies or we share interests. But just be aware that that information could be used for the not intended purposes.
Yeah. And things can
Another,
be not appear to be personal either that they're
yes,
asking. So I will often use because I am a bird watcher, we all know that. And I use birds a lot in my social media so that I don't have to use my family or other people. I
yeah,
use birds instead. So like my Mother's Day post was a sandhill crane with babies. But then when people engage, when it's great, some of it is super easy. It's all fine. Oh, is that a what is that? Or I
yeah,
love those or whatever. Yeah, that's all fine. When they start asking things, oh, where did you see that? Oh, I'd love to find that, right?
yep,
And that doesn't seem personal, but it actually is personal because if
yep,
I answer that, the
Now
when and the
they've
where, now they
yep,
would know exactly where I might be going.
right.
yep.
And sometimes I can answer that because of very well-known spots here that everybody goes, so it's not a big deal. But other spots, I don't need people knowing
Yep.
where I'm
Yep.
going.
Yeah.
And then, because then
Exactly.
it can, yeah, it's a slippery slope there. And that one I think is actually a great example because it doesn't seem personal. Oh, where
Yeah.
did you take that photo of a
Right.
bird? Like that doesn't
Well,
seem personal, but it
especially,
really is.
yeah, especially photos of animals. And again, like we were talking beforehand, you don't want to give out where you saw a particular animal, especially during the baby season or whatever, regardless, because then it just
Yeah.
brings crowds to that. So I've
Yeah.
had people ask me, well, where did you find those foxes? And I'll say, sorry, I'm not going to say, even if it's in my neighborhood, or
Yeah.
two neighborhoods down, I'm not going to say where I found them.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
want to jump in and add one more before we get to the next question. I
Yeah.
do want to quickly add one more about the security problems or potential scams, and that is, let's talk about the elephant in the room for a second. The AI generated impersonation.
Oh, yeah.
This is huge.
oh yeah,
So public photos can now be used to create realistic deepfakes. They could be used if you've got a photo of yourself and there's a video of you somewhere else. They can combine the photo and the voice to create very realistic audio or even again, like video snippets. Um, you can use legitimate photos to generate very compromising personal photos. This is one thing that, as a mother of a teenage daughter, this terrifies me reading in the news about some of the issues kids have had in high school where,
yeah,
and not to be stereotypical, but what I've read about in the news so far, so mostly groups of boys creating these pornographic images of girls in their classrooms using their school photos. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
that is the
That's
fact
all
that
they need to
AI
do
can
it.
do
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
all they need to do. And that's scary. So that's one thing again where you think about in this day and age, like technology has advanced so fast. And with AI, it's no longer just a photo. Like that photo has tremendous power. And that's just one thing I think always to keep in the back of our minds. Like, what are we posting? What are we sharing? Because
Well, and to not just trust what you see, but verify.
yes, yep,
Yeah.
That's the key. Do you remember I mentioned to you a little while ago about world.id,
yes,
the
yep.
iris scanning? So I heard a little bit more about that, and they started releasing that product on social media platforms where people are dating. But I've
Yeah.
heard that other
Can you just
companies,
back up a second, tell us what that is?
it's I think, is it Sam Altman? Did you?
I just meant
I
what the
believe it.
technology does. Is it
Yeah,
something's,
yeah. So
yeah.
this gentleman who started OpenAI, he started this other company to prove that you're human. And his company, I guess it's called World.id, I think. So the concept is before you get onto social media or you go into, certain video, like Zoom rooms, people are using AI to impersonate other people. And there was a desire on his part to figure out a way to truly, without a doubt, identify people. So he started paying people to use as sort of guinea pigs, to do the beta testing with this. And now it's branched out where large companies are actually looking at his software to use now. And you basically look into this device that he created and it captures your iris because it's so unique. And I heard recently, listening to one of my other podcasts, that large companies, including Zoom, are considering using that tool. And that like freaked me out because I'm not sure I really want to give up my eyeball,
Hmm.
because you can't get that back if it gets lost in the ethers of the internet. But there's the other side of it is how do you then protect these large companies that are now doing constant Zoom calls and board meetings, and everybody in the board meeting except you are AI? How would you know?
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, pin drop. Like
Yeah.
we are going into unventured territory here.
Hmm.
And we have to put up our shields even more so when we are engaging and sharing information back and forth with people.
Yeah.
Yep.
But not, and not just people. I keep seeing more and more. Well, I asked, chat or the equivalent or Claude or
Yeah.
any of
Yep.
them. I'm just going to use chat, but I'm only using that as a generic because I feel like that's almost the generic AI model now. But I really, when I say that, mean any of them. Simple things like, oh, I had chat tell me what clothes I should wear. So I uploaded a photo of me in this and
Yep.
all the clothes, and it created a wardrobe for me. Or I had chat, create an 8-day itinerary and I gave it the
Yes.
dates and so that it could tell me which days things would be open or closed and where I should
Yep.
go. And that petrifies me. I don't upload
100%.
photos of myself or my kids to chat. Again, general chat, not
Yeah.
necessarily chat GPT. It could be any of them.
Yeah.
People put an enormous amount of info
Yes.
in there, including photos. And that is all that has to do. One, you don't know really what the company's going to do with your stuff.
Yeah.
And two, even if the company's totally legit, what if it gets hacked?
Yep.
Yeah.
The amount of data in there is just it's
Yeah.
so frightening.
One thing I noticed in Photoshop, just using it the other day to restore someone's photo, um, they actually had a line there when I had highlighted a part of the image and was going to generate a new, touch up or something. It said, this photo is not being used to train AI. And I thought that
Mm,
was interesting from Adobe to clearly
Yep.
state that
yeah.
in the tool.
Yep.
So good on them.
Yeah,
Yep.
hopefully more will do that. But I still worry about, they can get hacked, even if they're not, right? So we'll give Adobe the benefit of the doubt. I use plenty of their products, so I sure hope they're on the up and up.
But here's, you don't even
But
know
who
what.
knows where that's going to go?
Exactly. You don't know what the company is doing with the data they have. But here's the
Yeah.
other thing. People are buying other companies right now that are going out of business for their data and then
Yes.
selling it to the AI companies. So if you
Yeah.
can imagine any of your personal information, all your Slack channel conversations, that is the meat of your business, all that IP, intellectual property, is then being used and sold to AI to train the AI. And so you don't even know how your data is going to be used in the future.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's very true. And that's a big, I think, again, I think it's very hard for us to realize or even envision what is the future going to be, right? Like how many of us would have said 5 years ago, like, well, I'm going to plug in, I want to go to Japan for 10 days and chat's going to give me an
Yeah,
itinerary with hotels and restaurants and attractions like that. At least that was beyond my comprehension of what the powers would have been. So I think today it's very hard for us to envision 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road,
right.
which is why it goes
Yeah.
back
Who
to,
knows?
I think our initial conversation back in season 2 was think before you post, like think before you share. Like we still control what we put out there. And I think having that understanding is what's critical because it's really hard to claw it back once it's out there.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think that's that
And I
whole like
think
pause.
the first time we talked about this, because it was like a year and a half ago, we were only
Yeah.
talking about social media then. We
Yes.
were talking
Yep.
about taking a photo and putting it on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn,
Yep.
whatever. And now, though,
Yeah.
the conversation is fully expanded because even if you or think you are not posting something to the public or your friend
Yep.
group, the moment you stick any of that information, a photo and
Yes.
other information into an AI bot, Chat or
Yep.
Claude or all of them, it's the exact same thing.
Yes. A
The
hundred
exact same
percent.
thing. Yeah,
Yep.
only and probably worse, frankly.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you're free, you are the product. Let's
yes,
just reiterate this. We said that last time. If you
we
are
said that
free,
last time.
if it is free, you are the product.
But even sometimes when it's not free, to get the
Yes.
best AI tools, they're not free and they're still, your stuff is
They're still
still,
using your data. Yes.
yeah. Okay, so I totally derailed you. I think that I will take full, yeah, I totally derailed you. But other scams, or did we get through them all? Because I think that's super important because it's, even if we're not, people aren't, or might be thinking, well, I didn't have that one, but it gets people thinking about the other things that they have seen.
Yep. So we got through the first three. There's one more I wanted to just
Okay.
highlight, and you kind of did in the intro, Allison, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but the whole vacation posting risks.
Mm,
It's the whole like we're off, the house is empty, like just especially going into summer travel season. Again,
yeah.
think before you post. So, four things to consider on the kind of the scams or security risks. Just to recap, One is the account takeovers through social engineering. So be aware of what you're posting and how others could use that to impersonate or take over your account. The second are the fake profiles and romance scams, which is a cousin of the first one, but they're different. They're very targeted, and those are really meant to elicit essentially you at the end of the day wiring funds for something for your loved one who is usually an AI bot or someone else, but not your intended loved one. Third is the AI generated impersonations and deep fakes. That is the wild, wild west out there. And it can combine video and audio and photos to make a very realistic deep fake of you or your loved ones. And then fourth is just, I grouped it general vacation posting risks or scams. Be aware if you want to post once you're back, not before you're going. Don't give the
Yeah.
bad guys an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's,
The other thing
yeah.
around that is not necessarily, social media, but it's your email. And I usually, when I'm talking to people about email or helping them set up something, I'll tell them where the out of office vacation response is. And I tell them I never use this and I tell them why. And it's because if you get spam, you're just confirming your email to everybody. Now, there are some settings that you can, say, well, just send it to my known contacts, but I don't. I never set an out of office. I never tell anybody where I'm going or anything like that in email. So,
That one's super tricky though,
Yeah.
because I'm going on vacation soon and I'm going to put this out there. I'm going without my family. So the family is staying home in my house. There are people there. The husband, the dog are going to be at the house. But I go places where I have no internet.
Yeah.
So if I'm gone for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, I can't just leave my email unattended, right?
Yep.
So it's tricky, but I have thought about that a fair bit, and I tend to go when I places unknown, I tend to do that without my husband, so he stays behind. Um, so I will actually often, right, I have left the family behind at home and I am out because it's actually the truth when I do that
Hmm.
because I can't leave it unmanned, so to
Yeah.
yeah,
speak, for
Yeah.
10
yeah,
days. I run a business. I don't care about my
Yeah.
personal email. I don't bother. I don't care.
right.
There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
nothing I need to respond to
But just
there,
make
but
sure that you set
you
it
know,
so that it's only to known contacts in your address
yeah.
book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't need, well, I don't know. I wonder kind of on the flip side, if I have enough of that for unknown contacts, will they stop emailing me? Like all the businesses and things. I don't want, will they just stop? But yeah, the known contacts thing but it's tricky because I have people reach me through my business that aren't in my contact book all the
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
it's not, yeah, it's not simple. But there are ways to phrase an out of office to don't that don't also say my house is
Empty.
empty
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. So
Just
just
think.
think about it.
That's what
Yeah,
we're
think about it
trying
before you
to,
do it.
yeah, that's what we're talking about today is think before you
Yeah,
act.
yeah. Okay, now we've thoroughly scared everybody to death. So we'll let me see I'm looking at my questions and see if there's something that's not so
What's the
scary.
least scary?
So what is the least scary? So what are some safe ways to share photos to family or a broader group of friends so that we can actually have some fun?
That's an uplifting.
A
Let's
little
give
bit more
people a
uplifting.
proactive way to do this, right?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, try not to share just publicly out into the ether, right? So if you're able to, some good practices, good options, set up a shared album of kind of software of your choice, but a shared album with limited invited users. Added bonus if those invited users have to verify some way, shape, form, email or something that it's actually them. So kind of that double verification. You invite them, they accept, they verify. Um, you could use encrypted messaging apps if you're sharing with a smaller group or a smaller, say, number of photos. I'm sure as photo managers, you all have software you prefer, but sometimes if you're just on the go sharing with family or friends, using an app that has end-to-end encryption, that's a great resource. You could also look at, and I would highly encourage, again, this is going to depend on how complex of a system you're using, but choosing systems that allow you to share with time limited permissions. And what I mean by that is the link is valid for, the next 24 hours or 48 hours. But in these systems, essentially require you to validate you are the person that's being shared with. And oh, by the way, you only have access to these photos or whatever else you're sharing for that amount of time. So there are steps you can take to enable kind of that safe and secure sharing of either a ton of photos or a small number of photos. I think there's also a couple of habits like we as the individuals who are sharing can think about when we want to go ahead and share to a group or to a small group. One is turn off your location metadata before sharing or taking the photos. If you don't need to have that location metadata turned on, turn it off. It's most people don't even think about it, but if that photo gets out to some unintended person with unintended intentions, it's better not to have that metadata on the photo. Avoid sharing. I think this is like we used to call when I lived in DC the Washington Post test, right? You never want to have a photo if it ends up on the front page of the Washington Post to be like, oh my gosh. So avoid sharing photos that wouldn't pass that test. So if you've got young kids at home and they're being super cute on the slip and slide outside and they're butt naked, maybe don't share those photos. Like wait till the grandparents come over in person and show those photos. Um, if you're, I don't know what other scenarios we can think of, but again, if you wouldn't want the photo on the front page of the Washington Post or whatever your local newspaper is, think before you share, but avoid, I think, posting or sharing some of those what could be sensitive photos. Unless, again, you're using, again, this depends what software you're using, what parameters you have in place. But if you've got end-to-end encryption, you have verified known contacts that they have to self-verify, like confirm that it's them. And you have kind of that time, it's 24 hours, 48 hours, 1 week, and then essentially it self-destructs. That's great. But I think there's very few people who actually do all of that. So unless you're doing all of that, just think about what you're sharing. Um, you can also share lower resolution versions of photos before you share. And that enables, in the case we were talking about earlier, the kid in front of the car with the driver's license. Sometimes you have the option. Do you want to share, like I think it's
High quality
best,
or
better, or
yeah.
like whatever, like the categories they give you,
Yeah.
you can choose the lowest res. And that way you can still see, like, hey, Johnny's super happy. He just got his license. But when you try to zoom in to see that license, it's really hard to do so. Um, you can also, I think, one thing, if you are sharing or using a software that allows you to essentially like name contacts, review who still has access to that, right? Like just because you shared once, and if you don't have that, like essentially where they self-destruct in 24, 48, 1 week, 1 month time frame, go back and review who has access to it. You might be amazed that maybe an ex is still on that sharing list, or an old babysitter or a nanny, or who knows what. But just review if you've given someone privileges to a shared folder and there's no expiration, go back and review that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I
You
would
could
just
just
say
put a
again,
tickler, put a tickler in
yeah,
your reminders a week after you get back from vacation, delete the shared
yep,
album or whatever it is.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then again, just best practice, like share privately by default and then broaden out as you need to. Like think about like who needs to have access to this photo and why and for how long. And then from there, if you share with a small select group, you've got kind of your preferred method of sharing. And then from there, you can add people on like one or two at a time. I think a lot of us are, like I'll share with the world and then I'll figure out like how do I get it back? Like instead
Yeah.
think about like, all right, like who really needs to know and see this? And then if others ask about it, great. Like you can add them in or you can send them one of maybe 10 photos or whatever it happens to be. But those would be my, I think, key takeaways thinking about how to share responsibly ahead of kind of summer vacations and travels.
The shared album is a great one. I mean, most people are not going to do all of those things. So
Yeah.
if you can just get yourself to adopt one or two of them, I mean, you make yourself much less of a target. So the
Yeah.
shared album, especially with family, I think works really well. One thing about location, because I am a huge fan of using location data, and I
Yeah.
do it because of the types of
The
photos that I
birding.
take. The birding, I mean, the birding, I have a camera that doesn't even have location, and I add the GPS after. Like, that's how much I like it. But it helps me in a variety of
Yeah.
ways. But
Yeah.
you can set your phone, either Android or Apple, And we figured this out once on another podcast where
Yeah.
Susan did it live, figuring out you can set your phone not to strip that
Yeah.
before you share it. So
Some,
I'm very
yeah.
cognizant of that. And pretty much, I mean, everybody listening to this podcast is going to have either an Apple or an Android phone. So
Yeah.
you can do it.
You
You
can do
can
it. Yeah.
strip it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what are you mentioned some apps or the idea of apps. What are some of your favorite apps,
Go-tos.
Heather,
Yeah.
that you would use for this?
Yeah, so I am still a big fan of Signal. I know that's been in the news. I will laugh and say it's been in the news because folks are using it because of how secure it is.
Right.
I will say it's again like any app. Look at your settings, look at how you have it configured. But we use Signal to share like quick. We don't use WhatsApp.
Mm.
We don't use other social medias like Facebook or Instagram or others. So if we have all the kids together, well, not together, but if all the kids are dispersed over wherever they happen to be in the world, plus us, plus our youngest, plus maybe a grandfather or an aunt or someone involved, we'll use Signal and we'll pop a photo into there, or we actually do our vacation planning via Signal. Not that we take a whole lot of family vacations, but my siblings and I did take one together earlier this year. It was the first time in like 20 years, no exaggeration. Um, but we planned it out. We used Signal rather than having all the details be in email or over text messaging. So I am a big fan of Signal. There's also Wicker. Wicker is some people find it frustrating because you in the app settings with Wicker, you have to ensure it doesn't auto delete after a certain amount of time. Whereas Signal, you can set it to auto delete. So it's kind of they're very, very similar, but how they approach essentially the Inspector Gadget, like destroy or explode on after reading after receipt is a little bit different. But both Signal, both Wicker are excellent. If you're someone who you're like, you know what, like I'm a Mac person and I've got all my photos on my Mac device, set up a Apple shared album. It's much better than just popping it into Facebook. Same thing if you're a Google person, Android person, Google Photos, you can set up a private shared family album in there. I will just say if using things like Google Photos or iCloud for that, just understand that um, probably the weakest link there is probably you. If you're creating a password, make sure it's a strong password. Don't reuse passwords. Beware of phishing attacks or scams, because one thing about with Google is that, and this actually happened to one of my good friends recently, is um, long story very short, clicked on something she should not have clicked on, but it got into her laptop, into her Gmail, and then went to her photos. It went to her Google Drive. It kind of went across the Google platform. So just be aware of that. But
Yikes.
again, if you're someone who you love Google or you love Apple and iCloud, you can use those shared albums. Just make sure you've got good passwords and you have good kind of, I think, cyber security on your end, because there's less risk of the technology, something like slipping up there, than there is of just a human error exposing what you have in those albums. So, and I'm sure you guys both have your favorites as photo managers.
Yeah,
So,
could you talk a bit about WhatsApp because the whole world uses WhatsApp. I mean,
yeah,
I have been planning some things for vacation and that's how I have to communicate with the guides and all
yeah.
those things and all of my family in Europe uses WhatsApp and it says it's encrypted. So, what's wrong with WhatsApp or is WhatsApp okay and it's more setting dependent?
I think it's more setting dependent, and that's a big thing. The other, again and again, depending on your settings. Um, if you're not careful, you can get third party ads across WhatsApp. I think it's much easier with WhatsApp, just because it is part of that Meta platform and there's a huge advertising arm behind it. You can get a lot more, I think, like a link here for a scam, or a link here for join this group on how to make $1 billion on Bitcoin.
Mm,
You see a lot of that. So for me, that's one of
yeah.
the reasons I don't use it. Like Signal, I've yet to have something pop up in Signal that I haven't verified as a contact. Um, so I think WhatsApp does have it has there's a greater risk of something popping up that you're not expecting. And again, if this is the human error part, if you
Hmm.
click on that or you join that group, like great, I want to make $1 billion in Bitcoin, like I'll join the group. Like, don't do that. If you're simply using it to communicate with loved ones or to plan a trip overseas, because you're totally right, like the rest of the world uses WhatsApp
Mhm.
and it is encrypted end to end. Like I will totally
Yeah.
give them that. It's just it is part of a much larger meta platform, which is
And
where
Meta
I
is
think you get some of
basically
those.
advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you get some of those
Yeah.
advertising links, or you
Where
get some of
Signal, you're
those.
not going to get an ad,
Yeah.
Yeah,
floating through your chat.
But
yeah,
just because it's so common, I just want people to know like
yeah,
WhatsApp is fine. Just
yeah,
don't click on the ads. You
Yeah.
can
yes,
set it to auto delete,
yeah,
but again, but I think what you're saying is that you have to be a little bit more diligent if you're using WhatsApp.
yes,
You have to be a little bit
yeah,
more aware. Whereas with Signal and Wicker, you don't. But the problem
yeah,
with Signal and Wicker is getting people to adopt. So I had tried this a
exactly.
couple years ago, and none of my European friends and family are going
Yep,
to use anything but WhatsApp. It's
yep,
just it's a non-starter. So if I want to have these conversations with them or share anything with them, I'm going to
yep,
use WhatsApp. So I think
yep.
it's just go through the settings. And again, I just switched phone carriers, all of my settings got reset for like
It's
every
sneaky.
app. So whenever you update or if you get a new phone or if you get a new phone carrier, whatever it is, just double check those settings
Yes,
again. Yeah.
it's a great reminder because it's so true.
Oh yeah. I mean, actually one of the good things was, I will say, I switched phone carriers and Zelle turned off and had to be re-verified.
Huh,
And so did
that's
something
great.
with our mortgage because my husband called me in a panic. He's like, "Did you do X? Is this a scam?" And it took us a minute to realize, no, 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 it's because there was that
Ah,
switch. And what happens when you
yeah,
switch phone carriers, in case you're interested, is that yes, they can port your number, but in
yeah.
between, for the briefest of time that you won't even notice, you're given a new number. And then they take, so the number is at the old place, it's turned off,
Um,
you're given a new number at the new place, the new place will connect your original
yeah,
number. But in that middle time, it disconnected Zelle, it disconnected our mortgage payments. There were a couple things, which actually was pretty great.
yeah,
So we had to re-verify, and it wasn't, I didn't get a link that says
yeah.
re-verify your information. So the first thing that happened, I saw something, I was like, wait a minute. And I went into my bank, and
Yeah,
sure enough, my phone number had been removed from my Zelle account, and that's why. So
Everything stopped.
it
Yeah.
was interesting. Yeah, I actually was pretty happy. And I didn't, I actually, I phrased that wrong. It's not like I got an email or a text from the bank saying you need to go do this because banks will
yeah,
not contact you that way.
yeah,
It just didn't work. And the first time I Zelled someone, it said, this is under review. And I'm like, oh, that's
yeah,
weird. And so then I went into the bank, and it happened a couple times with different things. I went into the bank, not from a link, but just,
yeah,
into my bank app, and that was figured
yeah,
out. So yeah, it was actually really it was a good thing, actually, I
yeah.
suppose. On the banks,
Yeah.
I think they're getting
It is a
better.
great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea. And
Yeah,
so yeah, it can scare you though initially because you're like, wait a minute,
yeah,
why are all my things suddenly not working?
yep,
Because that could be a sign that
yeah,
somebody has taken your
yes,
information. In this
yeah,
case, it was a sign of banks doing their job.
yep.
So, okay. Let's see. What else should we talk about? I'm sorry.
One
We
thing
had all
I
these
would
really
love to
depressing
talk
and scary questions for you.
one thing I would love to touch on, I know we're getting close to
Yeah.
time, but I would love to touch on QR codes because
Oh,
I think
yes.
with folks traveling and just they're everywhere now, right? Like menus
Yes.
and tourist sites and like buy your tickets here, don't stand in line. Like I want to touch on QR codes.
Parking.
So if you are traveling or even if you're at home and just going about your daily life, the same way that, like years ago we were warning about before you stick your card into an ATM, like look to make sure it's not going to be skimmed. Before you scan a QR code, do your best to figure out, is it legit? And why I say this is because QR codes are really, they're everywhere. Like I saw one on the side of the gas station the other day, and I don't think it was legit, but it was scan here to get extra rewards. And when you
Yeah.
scan that QR code, you don't know what's going to happen. Are you going to end up on a phishing site? Are you going to trigger a malware download? Are you going to initiate some sort of like payment scam or other thing onto your phone?
Because you
We
can't
were
see where it's going.
exactly.
When you
Yeah.
put your
It's
camera over the
yep,
QR code, it wants to open up a link in a browser, and oftentimes it's a short link, which is just gobbledygook,
Yep.
exactly.
and you have no idea
No
where you're
idea.
going.
Yep.
And
That's like
sometimes you have
scary.
to put in payment information. So
Yes.
Chicago, love Chicago. They recently put in new parking things down by the
Yeah.
lake, all up and down. So South
Yeah.
Shore, North Shore, the whole thing, and gated it off. And now you're
Yeah.
supposed to scan a QR code to
Yeah.
pay before, so otherwise you can't raise the gate.
Yeah.
And I was at one, they just did this like in the last month, and I was at one of these places. And the only way is there is a sign with a QR code. And when you open that link, you're supposed to put in a form of payment,
Yikes.
Hmm.
That's
right?
the
And
first thing
so
you're presented with?
that is the only thing you are presented with.
Oh,
You have
geez.
to put
Yeah.
in your license plate, and I actually didn't do it. I'm probably going to get a parking ticket, but I'm not even sure it's active yet. I'm like, because I couldn't even tell. I didn't see that till after, right? So, I mean, I then because I didn't do any of that information because I wasn't sure. This is literally brand new. I was at the same place a week ago, and they weren't there. When I was
Yeah.
leaving, I had to scan a QR code to get them to raise the gate.
Yeah.
So, like, it's everywhere, but parking is a really big one because it
Yep.
requires, so a lot of Chicago has little machines and you already have the app, you just type in your code, so you don't need to do
Yep.
it that way. But these are a QR code and you have to
Yeah.
scan it and you have to put in your
Yeah.
license plate and you have to put
Yeah.
in a form of payment. And that, I mean, what if somebody just had a big sticker and they
Yeah.
stuck it
Yep.
over
And
that
stuck
on
it
the
What I
on.
was thinking.
sign
Yep.
and you scan it and they make something
Yep.
that looks quite similar? That would be super easy to do.
Yeah.
In fact, I
Exactly. And
should
that's why I
just
wanted
go
to
call
like,
the mayor and
Yeah.
say,
yeah.
stop this. But
Yes.
super easy.
Super
So
easy.
I would
Well,
just
and
say, like, if you're, oh, sorry,
no, 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 I go.
I wanted to share a couple of things if your people are traveling this summer. So if you're going into an ATM, if you're not in your home, like where you typically bank or do your ATM activities, whatever, if you're
Mm.
overseas or somewhere else in the US and you're going to the ATM this summer, be very dubious of a QR code. If there's a sticker on the side of the ATM, like scan
Yeah.
here for conversion rates or scan here for language or like whatever that is, please do not scan those. I was doing a little bit of research to see about this because my husband and I last year in Italy, we went into an ATM. The bank was closed. We had actually used like the actual ATM. We needed cash for something. And there was a sticker next to it, scan here for conversion rates. We did not
Mm.
scan, but we had a huge conversation about how like there is no way for a human to know upon like visual inspection,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this legit?
Yeah.
And I think because we are so programmed, like, oh, it's a QR code, I'll scan here, that we do it. So I'm just going to say to anyone listening before traveling this summer, like, please, 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 like, if you're going to a bank or an ATM, you're not inside the actual institution, do not scan those QR codes.
I
If
don't think
you're
I've seen
lining up,
those.
pardon?
I haven't seen those, but now I'm like thinking about my kid who's studying abroad next year. I'm gonna have to make
Yeah.
sure I tell. I don't think I've ever, maybe I just haven't noticed, but I don't think I've seen a QR code by an ATM, but
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
It was a
Yeah.
scary one for me to see. And again, I didn't scan it to test it out. I wasn't going to be a guinea
Right.
pig.
Get your burner phone out there to,
Well,
to
yeah.
do
I mean,
it.
like,
That
how
would
are
be
you going to
nice.
do that? Yeah.
But I would say for ATMs, I would also say another thing that I've been reading a little bit is some travel blogs or folks, like if you're lining up, say, and the articles are about Sagrada Familia, like the huge lines to get in and so many
Oh, yeah.
attractions now, like the Trevi Fountain, you have to scan a QR code and pay, I think, 2 or 3 euros. Sagrada
Mm.
Familia, the Louvre. There's a lot of scammers now who walk around with placards, QR codes, skip the line, scan here.
Oh,
And they've built the
no.
site where you'll pay like 10 or 20 euros. You think you're like buying this thing. You'll even get a confirmation email. You
Oh,
then walk
geez.
up to go skip the
Wow.
line, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is not legit. So I would just say be aware if you are traveling this summer. Um, the same way we were saying, think before you share. I want to also add to this conversation, think before you scan QR codes.
Yep.
Wow. That's amazing. So
So
you just mentioned a couple places I'm sure my kid is going to go when he's studying abroad. I'm like, oh no, I'll just,
Well, I was in Italy and Rome
wow,
a few years ago and at Trevi Fountain, and there wasn't a charge to
that's
see it.
new.
That
It's
must
in the
be,
last six,
it is
8 months, maybe a year.
Yep.
Yes.
oh
You can
boy.
go, I've been reading about this. So you can actually, as a little aside, you can go before hours or after hours and still see it, like
Exactly.
real early or real late. But
Okay.
during the day now, it's like €2, I
Yep.
think, to actually go and get the view. It essentially was put in for crowding
Yeah.
Yeah.
reasons.
Oh yeah, it was
Yep.
very
Um,
crowded when I went. Yeah.
yeah, but it's, yeah,
Fascinating. Huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Wow.
okay.
So, just with AI, also, I want people to realize how quickly that people can come up with ideas on how
Yeah,
to, scam you. They can recreate websites very quickly now on the fly, make it look like your bank. So, my suggestion to everyone is don't click links if somebody emails you and says, we stopped payment on something or you're overdue or whatever. Don't interact with that email. Open a browser separately and navigate to the site that you're used to going with the proper URL
yeah.
address.
Banks
And
will never email
Yeah.
you until you
yeah,
click here. Banks and credit
Yeah.
cards. No financial institution will.
yeah.
Yep.
But what I'm seeing a lot of lately is even like with Dropbox, you're going to lose all your data,
Yeah.
Mm,
if you don't, pay or there's something wrong or, and running a business they might say whatever tool that they think I might be using, like a Squarespace website or something, they'll see what my
Yeah.
website is and then they'll send an email that says there's something wrong with your account and you need to
Yep.
pay before you lose your domain, and I'm like, I don't even have my domain on Squarespace.
yeah. There's
um
an iCloud one that I get a lot in spam. I forget what
yeah,
the actual verbiage is, but it's essentially we're going to delete your
photos
iCloud account,
or your
including
iCloud.
your
Yeah,
photos. It
yeah,
usually will save photos because
yeah,
people are very, that's how you get
Attached. Yep.
attached.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
emotional queuing up that they do that puts you in a panic and
Yeah.
causes you to not think all the way through because, oh my gosh, I don't want to lose my photos. So yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of the scamming going on, and so just be, aware.
Oh boy. Anything else we should
Anything,
scare
yeah,
people with?
anything
Any
else?
more? Oh my goodness. I'm like looking through to see our
I think we covered everything.
I think we might have
I wasn't sure we were going to hit it all, but
yeah. Heather's very efficient.
she
So
is.
Heather, yeah, so thinking about this conversation then, we covered a fair bit of ground, but
Yeah.
I will ask this. What are the top three things you can do to protect yourself in this space?
Yeah.
Like if people
So,
people have very small bandwidth. So let's do it this way. What's going to give you the most bang for your buck, I guess,
yeah.
first? And so sort of a first level and a second level. What are the super easy things that people listening can do in 5 minutes right
Yeah.
after they're done listening to this podcast? And then, what would the next step be when you have a little bit of time?
Yeah. So I'm going to say, although we're talking a lot about photos, this advice can also apply to, I think, broader anything online. So, first and foremost, please ensure you have a strong password, which is 16 characters and above, one uppercase, one lowercase, one special character, or at least one number. And please do not reuse the same passwords. But
And
That's
for
don't
huge.
use your
any
dog
account,
and your
Yeah.
anniversary and
yes,
your birthdays
exactly.
because we can all
Because
guess
you can
those.
find those out from photos you've already posted.
Yes. Yes.
So please, 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 if you're going to do one thing, any site that has your photos or especially sensitive financial or medical details, ensure you have a strong password and it is not the same password for each site. And if you're thinking, great, I'm going to add an exclamation point or number one at the end, and
The
therefore it's not the
exclamation
same
point.
password, please, 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 the entire password, do not reuse any portion of it. I don't
Yeah.
want to see your dog's name in any part of that password for the second one. So, strong password for each and
I hope
every
all my
account.
clients are listening to this because I swear every single one of them, it's their dog's name or their kid's name, the birthday, and an exclamation point
Yeah.
Yes.
every time.
Yep.
And that all is usually pretty easy to find out on social media too, by the way,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying. Second thing, the next step, which is very closely linked, you can do each of these in 5 minutes or less. Turn
Mhm.
on two-factor authentication
That's
for
huge.
anything that
Yeah.
has financial information, medical information, and especially those photos. We love our photos. You don't want someone getting into your Google account and going over to your
Yeah.
Google Drive or Google Photos because you've reused the same password and then they delete them or
Yeah.
whatever happens.
And turn
So
it on for
please, please,
Facebook
please.
and Instagram and
Yes,
Snapchat and
everything.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what
Every
Absolutely.
account that allows two-factor, it should be turned on. So
and
if
what
they
app
prompt you,
what
sorry, go
what
ahead.
app do you use, Heather? What 2FA app? Do you have a favorite?
So I use Authy. It's one of my
Oh, that's what
favorites.
I use. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're like, I don't even want to use an app for that, I just want to turn it on and get a text, that is better than nothing. So
Yeah.
please, strong passwords, 2FA. Last but not least, you're going to laugh when I say this, but please think before you share and think before you scan, because at the end of the day, most compromises from any digital device or account, over 95% are human error. So if you think about that, we, the ones on this conversation, the ones listening to this today, it's usually like, we don't do it intentionally, but we goof, we click, we share, we do something we aren't thinking because it's fast and in the moment. That's where most of
We've
the
all
compromises
done
come
it.
from.
I've done it.
Yeah.
I admit it
Yeah.
right now. I've done it. Of course I have. Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So just think, like, take a moment and think, would my friend actually be sending this to me? I haven't heard from her in 15 years. Or I don't know who this person is. Why are they telling me I just won $100,000 or whatever it happens to be? Or again, I can't stress this enough. If you're traveling this summer, please do not scan QR codes that are anywhere near an ATM. If you're in line to purchase tickets, please think before you scan those QR codes. If you're going out to eat, you're in a restaurant, the waitress hands you a menu, I'm not worried about that, or hands you a placard with a QR code instead of the menu.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But just think about where you are and how quick would it be for someone to make 10 euros off of scan here to buy a ticket? So just
Right.
think before you scan or think before you share. So
Wow. I
Okay.
can't thank you enough. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. Wait, hold
Me.
on. There was a second part. Second part to that question
Oh,
was, sorry, if you have more time.
if you have
oh,
more
If you
time,
have
okay.
more
yes.
time. Yeah. So she just gave, I don't want to leave that out. So
Yeah.
she just
So
gave us the
this
things that
was,
are very easy you can
yeah,
do
Yeah.
right now. Turn on 2FA, think before you post.
stay
Passwords.
away.
Don't
Passwords,
and change
passwords.
your
Yeah.
passwords or give good
Yeah.
passwords. So if
Yes.
you now are listening and you thought, okay, I'm going to do those things, but this weekend coming up, I really want to sit down and lock things down.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
What
what
are
do I
what are
do?
some other things that you would do?
So make a list of the top 10 apps or like digital accounts you have that you use on a regular basis. Go through and check every single setting for those accounts.
And that's
Figure
bank.
out,
That's whatever
yep,
accounts are important to you, right?
The
whatever. And
banks
maybe if
and
you have
credit
more than 10 you
cards
typically
and
use, like whatever your kind of your go-to, like if you're checking it once a month, it should be on that list.
Yeah.
And then I want you to go in and check settings. Check what you're sharing, who has access, if they auto delete, if they don't auto delete. And this is where I think all of us, when we talk about being a privacy advocate, there's that whole spectrum, right, of convenience and security. Each
Yes.
of us are going to have a personal kind of where we fall on that spectrum. So it's up to you to decide what level of convenience do you want and what level of security are you willing to have to go with that convenience. So there's no necessarily right or wrong answer here. But the important thing is you're taking the time to check and realize what it is. Because oftentimes software apps will, when they have an update, you get the little update. You're like, great, I just updated my app, doing a good job here. Typically, your security settings reset with those
yeah.
updates. So go in and double check your security settings for the apps or programs you use on a regular monthly basis. The other big thing, if you've got more time and you're going to be seeing family this summer with the advent of AI, I can't stress this enough, create a family code word.
Oh, that's
That
really
is the
good.
word. That is the word you're going to use. If you got to say, Alice, I'm going to use your son as the example. He's overseas studying abroad, and you get a phone call late at night saying, "Mom, my passport got stolen, my wallet got stolen. I want to come home. I need 5,000 euros for a plane ticket. Could you send me the money?" as a mother of teenagers, like I'm going to say
Mhm.
I would be wiring that child money as fast as I possibly could once I verified it was him or her.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
this day and age of AI, having that family code word. Awesome, Johnny. I will wire you the funds. What's our family code word? And please don't make it your dog's name or something you
Yeah.
can
Right.
find out from social
Exactly.
media.
Don't
I'm
make
going
it a
to say
dog.
that right now. It can be, they would say code phrase, not, I mean, a lot of folks, it's a code phrase, not a code word, but it's something that is not AI figure outable.
Outable. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
I mean, it could just
So,
be like ice cream or your favorite
yes,
flavor of ice cream or like
Yeah.
some random
yes,
thing like that. But yeah, not the dog.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but not the dog, please.
That
So
is
if you
really,
have more
really
time,
good tip
yeah,
because, I haven't started, he's going to be brought all next year and I haven't really started thinking about all of those things yet.
yeah,
But I was just thinking about those scams. I'm not sure if they're current. They probably are still current where, a grandparent gets a
Yeah.
call
yes,
from
exactly.
a grandkid and
Yep,
there's something like that.
yes,
And that was a big one not super long ago.
yeah,
And
yeah,
people
like
getting
a year
scammed out
Well,
of
ago.
and
tons of money.
yeah.
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 Yeah. So, wow.
All right.
We-
Adding that to my to-do list for the kids.
And when you decide on what that code word or code phrase is, if you have, like, if you're going to see family in person, tell them in person. If not, use one of
Yeah.
those secure messaging apps, right? Don't put this into email.
Texted our family code word
Yes.
is
Please don't.
Well, and having a password keeper is really helpful because,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can put in your brain. So,
yeah.
for a lot of websites, they'll have backup codes and
Yeah.
people don't know what to do with those, or they'll
Yeah.
download them, but then they're so generic, they don't know what app that went with. So
Yeah.
I usually include it in my login information in my password
I do
keeper.
that too.
I
Yeah.
happen to use Bitwarden. It's free for basic use or $10 a year. So,
Yeah.
you can't really say I can't afford it.
Yeah.
But it is troublesome. And again, what I mean by that is you only have to remember one password to get into your password keeper, and then you can make extra long, secure passwords, but you always have to have that password keeper somewhere, you know?
And don't use your dog's name for that password either.
Yeah.
Right.
Forget it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Can I say thank you now? I think
Sorry.
we've covered it.
I think so.
No, no, no. I was happy to circle back because then she came up with even more. I mean,
Well, I mean, to be fair, we could literally talk all day
yeah,
about
about stuff.
this. We're just
Yeah.
trying to hit some of the more common, the more
Yeah.
common things. But Heather,
Yeah.
you are a wealth of information. And every time I think, I know a lot. I'm pretty good. I talk to you and it's like, psh, okay, I got up my game.
No. Well, thank you both so much for having me on this afternoon. It's been a pleasure talking, and I hope all your listeners safe travels if you're traveling this summer. Have fun, enjoy, take some great photos. Just think before you share, think before you scan.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Heather.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has
Thank
been
you.
great. Bye. Wow. Yeah.
Okay, there's a lot to think about there. Hopefully, we haven't scared everybody to death so that
I,
they throw all of their devices in the
I
ocean.
I don't think we have, but I mean, a lot of this does end up in the news, and so
Mhm.
that's where we get a lot of our stuff, or you see it in forums or people sharing
Yeah.
stuff like this. So, yeah, it's today's priority because
It's
trying
our
to
reality.
maintain, yeah, it's our reality, and trying to hold on to whatever privacy we have left is a job that you have to think about every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's frightening. It is truly frightening just how easy it is to get scammed
Damned.
and to
Yeah.
have your information stolen because our everyday life now is so tied up in sharing and photographs and information. There was one point where she said something about people don't generally want like purposefully put all of their stuff out there. And I was thinking, actually, yes, they do. There are whole segments of influencers and other things
That
that
share
that
everything.
share everything.
Oh, yeah.
everything.
Their family vacations, where they're going to eat,
Yeah.
how they feel at any given moment in time. I
Their
mean,
new
it's their
puppy,
new puppy. Yeah.
their kids' schools, their the clothes they wear, everything.
Yeah. It,
Everything. And it's part of that trying to, well, I mean, I think that's a set, probably their own category, but in general, we want to share. Humans want to share.
right.
I want to share. I know when I go on vacation, I do want to post vacation photos and this and that. And I always have to, luckily, like I said, I go to a lot of places where I have no internet. So I'm cut off for reasons beyond my control. But it's hard not to. So you just have to be super careful about it. And,
Right.
you know,
There was a
well,
post through somebody that I follow that she learned that she had an AI uh, person avatar generated because she's an influencer. And so it was very easy for them to grab all her videos and
mm,
her voice. And they created a version of her selling some sort of product on the internet. And she only found out because
wow.
some of her people who follow her saw this was happening, and it happened in Fiverr, that website for where you can go and ask somebody to do something. And
Mm,
so somebody clued her in, and she was able to contact Fiverr and have that all that information taken down and
wow.
the account closed and stuff like that. But otherwise, how would you know that somebody is doing
Yeah.
this? You know, so there's not enough tools for us to ensure that we're being protected,
Yeah.
right? How do
Right.
you search for
Yes.
yourself, right? In
I
that
know.
way.
Hopefully the tools are coming, although I mean, it's going to be hard for the tools to keep up. My bank example after we switched phone carriers,
Yeah.
that's an example of a new tool that is a response to some of this other dastardly things, that have been happening. But I do think that they're not going to be able to keep up. And that I do also really believe that 95% of all scams and things, all of the issues that we run into are user error. And I'm not saying this to blame the victim. I'm saying this as it can't be helped. You have to take care of yourself. If you scan a QR code next to a bank, is it your fault that you got scammed? No, you're not the bad guy here, but we all need to be, unfortunately, taking more responsibility for our own actions. And like I said, this totally sounds like victim blaming, and that's not what I mean. It's just
Right.
that we're beyond the point where
You can be lax.
we can be lax
Yeah.
because we can't.
Yeah.
Your passwords, your sharing, all of that, unfortunately now, you have to be in control. You have to have some agency and pay attention
Hmm.
and try and cut it down because sure, you're not in the wrong, but you're the one that's going to pay the price when you're trying to recover. Sure, you get scammed €2 out of Trevi Fountain or you miss your tickets. Annoying, but not a huge deal.
Right.
Somebody gets into your bank account,
Big
somebody takes
deal.
your identity.
Yeah.
So by practicing some of these sort of lesser things or these other habits, it's really important that we are now trying to protect ourselves and keep it at bay.
Yeah. And if you feel yourself responding to an email that sounds urgent, that should be your clue. Stop and think and reevaluate before you take action.
Pick up the phone,
Yeah.
but don't call the number on the email.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
try and find the number another way.
Well, it's kind of
Yeah.
like I've had clients that interact with a pop-up that says your computer's, in danger. It has
Oh,
this,
yeah.
that. Call Microsoft, and so they actually think that Microsoft put that pop-up on their
Yeah.
computer when in fact, they didn't. But then they call the number, and of course, it's a spam, a scam, and then they want to get in your computer to, help diagnose what's going on. So,
Yeah.
just realize when something happens, don't interact with that piece of content. Figure out
Yeah.
what's going on and then just shut your computer down if it's a pop up. Just disengage from the internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. On that cheery note.
Yes. We hope that some of this
I
information is
know.
helpful. That's why we do these,
Yeah.
podcasts. It's informative. We're both privacy advocates, and we hope that, you've taken away some active actions that you can
Yeah.
take to secure your information and to secure your family's
Yeah.
information.
Definitely share these tips with the family. Share them with the kids, the cousins, the sisters, the brothers, the aunts, the uncles. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, mom, whatever." But if you keep saying it to anyone, maybe they'll start to adopt some of
Yep.
these as
Yep.
well. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Thank you.
We will see you
Another,
next time.
yeah,
And we'll put the resources as usual in our show notes at insidephotoorganizing.com so that you can find some of the things that we've been talking about today.
yep,
And I hope everybody takes at least one or two or three or more of these tips to heart.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
All
Be safe
right.
out there.
We'll
Until
see you
next
later,
time.
Susan. Until next time.
Bye for now.
Bye. Okay, that was a good one.
That's it for our show today. Remember, you can find this episode on all of your favorite podcast apps. Be sure to click follow so you can stay up to date with the latest in photo organizing. We'll catch you next month.